Hello again, everybody. It's DBZ Chicken as I shrink my screen so I can look up at the little webcam. I'd like to welcome you to my latest little post. A little different. I thought I'd do a true, strange little story. It's very interesting, I think. Sounds a little like an urban legend, but this is not one of those friend of a friend things. This actually happened to my mother. It's a true story. Now, sadly, it does start off a little depressing, but I have to build up the background. Many years ago, very young child, we were living with my grandmother, and she became very ill. My mother was the one who was basically doing most of the caring for her. She had to be given medications every 2 hours, and whenever my mom tried to get rest or tried to leave her for a second for anything, my grandmother would try to. She would get up, and she would try to get up, and she couldn't at the time. She was very sick. So this really became, a hardship on my mom, and she became very sick herself. She began having this, variety of symptoms. So she finally got someone else to watch my grandmother and went to the doctor. The doctor says, "Well, the truth is, you're just exhausted. That's all there is to it. You really need to get some rest." And my mom said, "I can't." And she explained the situation, what was going on. So finally, the doctor said, that they had to do something. They had to help her because this was affecting her physically and even mentally. So he decided that he was going to put her in the hospital because if she was home, she would have been the one expected to do everything anyway, even with this happening. But for anyone who's been in the hospital, it's not, the most restful of places. So he somehow pulled some strings. He put her on the psych ward, on the psychiatric unit, which, she really didn't need to be, but he could kind of finagle it because you had to usually be a danger to yourself or others, and she'd fallen asleep while driving and all that. And I'm not sure how he did it, how he pulled the strings, but he got her up on the psychiatric unit. And the nurses that were on duty when she came in knew the situation, knew that she was there purely because she was just exhausted and really, really had to get some rest. And they're really polite to her, really nice. "Honey, do you want anything to eat?" Mom's like, "No, I just want to sleep." So they take her back to, and that was one of the reasons they wanted a psych unit because she could have a private room. And they took her back to the room and they asked, "Do you need anything?" And Mom says, "Well, it's a little chilly in here. Can I have another blanket?" Nurse says, "Sure, honey." So they go and get Mom another blanket, and they had a heater. It was on the wall. It was like one of these wall, units underneath the window at the foot of the bed. And they turned the heater on. And so Mom, curls up under her blanket, and as soon as they turn off the light, she's asleep. Well, she's not sure how long she's asleep. She's pretty deep asleep because she really needed it. When she's woke by a loud popping noise. Disoriented, she sort of wakes up and she looks around. And there at the foot of her bed, at that heater, flames are starting to shoot out. And they're just sort of licking the curtains, not exactly catching them on fire yet, but just about to. And of course, she is about to panic. She's in a strange room in the dark, and there are flames at the foot of her bed. So she gets up and she feels her way out of the room. It's dark except for the light the fire's causing. She gets out to the hall, starts running down the hall going, "Fire! Fire! My room's on fire! Get everyone out! Fire!" Uh, but one little thing had happened. There had been a shift change while she had been asleep, and the nurses on duty did not know her situation. All they saw was a woman running down the floor, running down the hall of the psych floor screaming, "Fire!" So one of the nurses, trying to be real gentle, says, "That's okay. Why don't you go on back to bed?" Mom's like, "No, don't you understand? My room is on fire." "That's okay, honey. It'll be better by morning. You're going back to sleep." She goes, "My room is on fire." And this continues for a bit. And finally, Mom says, "All right, I'll go back if you go back to the room with me." Nurse says, "Okay," probably thinking, "Oh, things I have to do for these people." So they walk on down the hall, open the door. Nurse stands there for a minute. She goes, "Oh my gosh, it really is on fire!" You're freaking out. And she's screaming, "What do I do? What do I do?" And one of the other patients comes over. He gets the fire extinguisher, hands it to the nurse, and says, "Here." And the nurse looks down like, she has this alien baby in her hands and is like, "What do I do with this?" So the patient grabs the fire extinguisher and puts out the fire. And about that time, alarms have gone off. The fire department gets there. But, of course, that's one of those things that no one believed her. Next day, they had a doctor, the generic doctor, who'd come in checking all the patients, and she told him about the room catching on fire, and he didn't believe her. And he went down to the nurse station, and is laughing about it, and they're like, "No, really, it caught on fire." Just one of those little strange stories sometimes that happen. Life can be stranger than fiction. It really happened, and I just thought it'd be a funny thing to share. Well, this is me. Stop. This is the end. Bye all.